Good morning, everybody, and happy Wednesday. Wake up to another wake up. Welcome to another live here with me, Asia Nasir, host of Wake Up Wednesdays, where we're here each and every every other week. Every other Wednesday, we're here to talk about positive, empowering things for women and young girls as well to be able to move on their journey in this thing that we call life, and to be able to move in a way that we are more in control versus allowing external things to control us. And so this is why I'm here to share some wonderful things with you today. And before I get into all of that and what we're going to be talking about, for those of you who are new to, my channel, wherever you're tuning in, whether YouTube, Facebook, or LinkedIn, my name, as I mentioned before, is Asia Nasir, and I am the founder of a nonprofit organization called Jessica Cares, which is a female empowerment platform that, as I mentioned before, empowers girls and women to be the best versions of themselves. And we do that through personal development programs and workshops. We do that through professional workshop as well, which includes vocational training as well as entrepreneurial masterclasses. We have an author's masterclass to help young girls and women to really use their voice in a positive way and taking what's within and even lessons that they've learned and putting it to pen and allowing others to be able to learn from their journey. And since then, we have self-published through Jessica Cares over 20 young girls, teen girls, and women, where you can actually buy their books on Amazon. So we're really, really proud of that. And we have our annual retreats, and we have what we're doing right now, which is our Wake Up Wednesdays. Our Wake Up Wednesdays is just a way to just kind of wake you up from maybe the dull of, what you're going through throughout the week and, or whatever's going on in your life, and just kind of getting a reset button to be able to allow you to kind of center yourself and just kind of see where's these things coming from, and why am I feeling the way I'm feeling, and really getting in tune with what's happening with you from an internal perspective, as well as how that's projecting externally to others. So that is a little bit about us. And so I want to get right into this week's Wake Up Wednesday, which is so important. It's a really, really important topic. And I know you can see it there on the bottom, where it's called, what we're going to be talking about is mirror talk. Overcoming those negative self-images and things that we say to ourselves, and really learning how to love yourself. Really learning how to love yourself. And that's really hard. And I think a lot of that stems from when you're having a lot of negative talk. It's either things that have happened either in your childhood, and that's a learned behavior, or possibly being in an environment, whether it's through friendships and intimate relationship, or even in the workplace, being around others that are putting you down, and it's starting to internalize. And now, even without people, putting you down or discouraging you and things like that, you're starting to do it yourself. So, and once you do that, it's very, very difficult to kind of move from that. And so that becomes the conversation. And believe it or not, if this is the first time you're hearing this, you're listening. Your body is listening to you. So whatever you're feeding it, that is what you become, positive or negative. Your body is listening. So if you're telling yourself negative things, that is what it believes. That is what your brain believes, and that's what your faculties and everything within your soul believes. However, the opposite of that, if you tell yourself that, positive things, and you believe that, because that becomes a belief system, that is how you walk in the world, and that is how you show up in the world. So I want to share, for those of you that are struggling with, internal negative conversations where you're putting yourself down, you don't really have high beliefs in yourself and your abilities, this live is for you. And so we're going to be talking, as I mentioned, mirror talk, overcoming negative self-image, thoughts, and learning to love yourself. And so I'm going to be sharing 3 strategies. I typically do 5, but I really want to, use some power punches here to talk about 3 strategies that I think is really going to be able to help. And yes, it's easier said than done. However, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So you got to start somewhere, right? You just got to start. So let's talk about those 3 strategies that's going to be able to help you move from negative self-thinking, or what I call stinking thinking, and move into positive conversations and self-love. And that's what you really want to accomplish in your life. So let's get right into it. So the first strategy for you to be able to refrain from those negative thoughts that become actions, you have to learn and you have to train, not learn, you have to train your brain to reframe your inner dialogue, meaning you got to rein it in. It's going to happen because your brain is already conditioned to think very negatively of yourself. So it's just like working out. It is not a pleasant thing. It's not fun, especially if you haven't worked out, sore muscles, pushing yourself, sweating, feeling out of breath, if you have a personal trainer, hating your personal trainer because he's pushing you or she's pushing you past your body's comfort zones. But you know that the more you push and the more you push against wanting to just give up, it becomes easier and easier as you go to your workouts. No different than your brain. And our brain is very much like a computer. It is programmed to whatever you put into it. So the minute you feel, and I call this the catch and challenge, you got to catch yourself when you're having those negative thoughts. It doesn't matter how simple it is. Like, you go to the mirror and you're like, I look terrible. I don't like the way I look. I don't like my body. I'm not, somebody invites you to something and you're like, I don't belong in that room. Like, I feel intimidated by the people in the room. When you start having those type of thoughts, anything that takes you to the negative, the half empty, the cup half empty dialogue, doesn't matter what it is. I'm not pretty enough. My hair is this, whatever it is. I'm not smart enough. I want you to catch yourself right there. Like, listen to what you're saying to yourself actively, and then catch yourself and say, you know what? Is this really true? Am Do I look terrible? Right? Do I really look terrible? Or more importantly, ask yourself, would this be something that I would say to someone that I love? Is this something that I would say? All the negative things that you say to yourself, ask yourself, would I say that to my best friend? Would I say that to my sister? Would I say that to any of my children or my spouse? Would you say any of those things? And if the answer is no, then you have to ask yourself, why are you saying it to yourself? You want to love yourself, right? So you have to feed yourself and tell yourself the things that are positive about you. So while my son is leaving for work, so I just was saying bye to him. So what you have to ask yourself when you're constantly telling yourself negative things, look at the things that you love about yourself. So you may not be the that you want, but you're moving in that direction, or you're striving for that direction. Instead of saying I look terrible, say I'm growing. I'm growing. I'm beautiful just the way I am. That's my alarm. So you have to tell yourself, I'm growing. You may not be as smart or think that you're not as talented as the women in the room, but you're growing, you're learning, you're stretching, you're evolving, right? You're ascending. All of those different things, that's what you tell yourself. So I'm going to share something with you. I remember when I used to be in the corporate world, working as a branch manager at a bank. I remember this was my first banking job that required me to network. That was really intimidating for me. I was used to just being that branch manager in the branch and handling people as they came in, and all the stuff that goes on inside a bank. And this was the first time that I had a job that required me to go outside and actually seek, customers, network, socialize in that setting. Now, I'm a people person. I love to talk. But when I was challenged to actually speak to strangers, people who didn't know me, and nurture that relationship in order for them to do business with me, that was a whole new game for me. And networking, becoming part of a chamber, I was like, oh my God. And then I joined what was called Women in Business. It was a committee, a group in the chamber that was called Women in Business. Best decision I ever made. But boy, was I intimidated. I was so intimidated. I was around entrepreneur women. I was around movers and shakers. And I didn't feel like I fit in that room. I didn't know how to approach people as far as like business and when to talk about business, when to not talk about business. And I'm watching these women just work the room. And I'm like, well, I want to be just like those women. And it was intimidating. And I had to tell myself, instead of saying I don't belong in the room, I'm not as business savvy as these women, what I told myself was, I'm going to become like that. I'm going to be a woman that commands a room. I'm going to be a woman that can walk a room. I'm going to be a woman that can nurture relationships and build relationships and bring business, my book of business and all of that. I was like, I'm going to become that. I'm going to be that and better. That's what I started telling myself. And I went to those meetings and I went to those, events at the chamber, and I became just that. I became a woman in leadership, really leadership, through women in business. So again, reframing from telling yourself you're not good enough and meeting yourself where you are. You may not be exactly where you want to be, but challenge yourself to reframe from what I am not and what I am becoming. That is what you need to tell yourself. And each morning, 3 times a day, you tell yourself, I honor who I am becoming. Look at yourself in the mirror. Look at the beauty of yourself. Look at, everything of where you are, where you stand, the good, the bad, and whatever you're not satisfied with. But look at yourself and honor the journey that you are taking within yourself to be better, to want to be the best version of yourself. And say it 3 times every single morning. I honor who I am becoming. Okay, so that's strategy number 1. Strategy number 2 is practice what I call internal visibility. So, a lot of times we live for others' validations. We live for someone telling us we're doing great. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with liking to be complimented. Nothing wrong with that at all, because it is a feel good. So I'm not going to say that's not a good feel. But what we have to learn how to do, if we want to have an internal mirror talk and to avoid negative self-imaging and limited beliefs, we have to start complimenting and validating ourselves. And so some of us, this is the first time for us. We don't know how to do that. So let me share the strategy in which to do that. So one of the ways in which you can do that is show up in starting small. You got to crawl before you walk. Show up in small ways. So if you took a picture and you thought the picture was beautiful, post it. Be loud, be out loud. You know what I mean? Post that picture, share that picture with your family, your children, or your friends, and say, I'm having a great day, or just, whatever mood you're in, post that picture. Or if you're at that meeting and you're always the one to shy away from saying things, but you have a lot to say internally, challenge yourself to speak up at that meeting, especially if you work virtually and your meetings are virtual. You're not in a room, it's just you in the comfort of your home or wherever you work at, and speak up at that meeting. Say something, contribute to that meeting, something in a small way. Just challenge yourself to be heard, to be seen, to show up in that space, right? Or wear something that you are comfortable with, that makes you feel good, right? That's showing up for you, validating the voice in you saying, I like how this makes me feel. Because when you look good, you feel good, right? When you feel good, you show up good. So if you wear something that you enjoy wearing, do that in spite of what someone else may say. Someone may not like those pair of shoes or like that. Okay, you're not wearing them, I am. If you like it, wear it. If you're in that meeting and you hear something, speak up at that meeting and contribute to that meeting. Be heard and seen in that meeting. And if you take a picture and you think you look glam, post it. Post that picture. Be seen, be heard, just for you even. Not for validation, not for likes, but just to be able to say, I like the way this looks. And so I'm posting up what I want, the vision of myself that I want to see on my social media pages, right? So show up in small ways for yourself. The other thing is celebrate yourself, right? Each week, write down one thing that you're proud of each and every week, especially if you're journaling. Write down one thing that you are proud of. If it's that you spoke up at that meeting, or that you challenged yourself and you reframed and you turned a negative into a positive, write that down. Journaling, a lot of people think you have to write these long paragraphs of things. Look, sometimes in my journal, I got one sentence in there. One sentence that just encapsulates everything that I'm feeling in that moment, good, bad, melancholy. Sometimes journaling is just being able to be aware of what you feel. So if you're proud of something that you did, write it down. Somehow journaling and writing things down kind of cements things in your brain, cements things in your mind, right? So write it down. Write down what you're proud of, because then when you go back and you're having those days that are a little more difficult, you can go back to your journal and be like, wow, I did that. I accomplished that. I pushed through that. I did that. And that's a pick me up, but it's your internal voice speaking. It's your mirror talk speaking, right? And last, when we're talking about practice intentional visibility, is take up space on purpose. Take up space on purpose. Practice walking into rooms where your head is held high, not with your head held down and feeling like you don't belong, but practice walking into a room. Force yourself to look ahead. I remember one of the things that I used to do with my son, my oldest son. He has a form of autism. It's called Asperger's. And they have a very difficult time connecting with people, especially people that are their peers. And one of the things that I used to tell him is, he used to put his head down every time he would talk to people. And I'm like, be present. Look people in the eye and talk to them, especially as a young man. That is going to be things that people are going to respect. So look at people in their eyes so they can take you serious and know that what you have to say has value. So that's what I'm challenging you to do, is walk into rooms with your head held high. Because it's not about what other people think. It's about what you think. So take up space on purpose. If I'm going to be somewhere, I'm going to be present and I am going to be there. Right? So take up space on purpose. Make your not make your presence known like in a braggadocious way, but you ever see a woman walk into a room and she just commands respect? Why? It's because her aura, what she feels on the inside, projects externally. And so it commands that respect. When she walks with her head held high, doesn't matter if she's in the room. And a lot of the women that we admire, and we're like, wow, that's a confident woman. Oh, she has her moments. A lot of my girls in my program and the women, they're like, but I see it, it's so easy for you. And I'm like, are you kidding? There are days that I still have moments where I have to have that mirror talk. I am worthy. I belong in this room. I have something to offer. My presence matters. I have to tell myself that, because those negative thoughts want to creep in every now and then, and you got to take control of that. You got to reframe. Like I said, catch and challenge yourself. Challenge, where is this coming from? Why am I feeling this way? And then you look at those things that you've written down. What are you proud of? And you get it back together. Not from false things, not from just telling yourself positive things to hype yourself up. No, it's facts. Taking the facts of who you are, what you've accomplished, what you've pushed through, the things that you're proud of, and you're reading that before you're stepping into those rooms to challenge. And then that becomes the internal dialogue. That becomes the positive self-image that you have of yourself, and learning how to love yourself in the process. Like, I love this journey, I remember there was a time when I was in my 30s, and this was right before I started Jessica Cares. And I'm going to tell you, I didn't like myself. I didn't like myself, and I really struggled with self-esteem issues. And I had to do my work, and I had to rediscover myself. And that takes me to strategy number 3, and what I want to talk about. And that's heal the root and not just the reflection. We live in a world where it's all about image. It's all about social media. And if you look good, that's all that matters. No. Here at Jessica Cares, we don't do that. Here in Wake Up Wednesday, this is to wake you up. If that's what you're doing, that's just a facade. What I want to share with you and what I want to challenge you to do is live it. Be authentic about, the positivity that you're putting out into the world. So you got to heal the root and not just a reflection. So what do I mean by that is journal deeply. And what I'm not talking about writing. I'm talking about mental journaling. When you have those negative thoughts, right? It's what I call peel the onion. When you have those negative thoughts, you have to ask yourself, when did I start believing that I wasn't good enough? When did that happen? When did that start? And for me, it was really clear when that started for me and whose voice it was. Ask yourself, whose voice am I hearing when I critique myself? Is it really coming from you? Is it that parent? Is it that spouse? Is it that friend? Is it that group of friends that you choose? Is it that boss or that supervisor? Whose voice am I hearing when I'm telling myself I'm not good enough? Where did that happen? Because the reality is when we're born, we're not born with negative thoughts. That's a learned thing. Where did that happen? Where did that start? And then you have to ask yourself what I was asking before. Is this even true? Because a lot of times we wear other people's shame, other people's low self-esteem that they project on you. We wear that like a badge of shame on us. And it doesn't even belong to us. It doesn't even belong to us. So they no longer have to critique us and have to insult us and have to put us down. You take on that role and you start doing it to yourself. So that's deep journaling, and it's hard because sometimes you have to realize that it's people that you claim that you love so much, or people that said that they loved you, and they've really hurt you. They've really, taken a toll on your self-image and how you feel about yourself. So those are two questions you have to ask yourself if you really want to do that internal work and really start changing the dialogue within. Ask yourself, when did, excuse me, when did I start believing that I wasn't good enough? And the second question is, whose voice am I hearing when I'm critiquing myself? Is it really yours, or is it that voice? So again, healing the root, getting to the root of where that began. And if that requires, I don't know how to get out of this. This is so deep rooted in me. What's wrong with getting therapy? What's wrong with speaking to someone to help guide you and give you the tools to be able to reframe, be able to, reprogram your mind? That's not an easy thing. And hey, look at me here. It's been over 15 years. I've gone to therapy, and every now and then I pop back into a therapist and let's tap in, because life's. And sometimes you go through things and it challenges you and it triggers you, and you got to go back and you got to step in and be like, hey, I'm not going into that rabbit hole. Let me catch it. Let me be proactive, and let's get it from now. So that therapy is not a bad thing. Maybe a support group, unpack what, unpack that shame that you're feeling. If there's a support group, whether it's in your house of worship or, things like that, or just a social, setting, join that so that way you can heal from that and catch it and be proactive about your journey, your either healing journey or just your positive journey, wanting to stay positive. Doesn't always have to come from that, but life is life and it sometimes takes a toll on you. So seek that support group or that therapy. And last but not least, practice grace. It's not about perfection. We're never going to be perfect. Let's just be clear. Let's be clear on that. We're never going to be perfect. However, we can be about progress. My life is always about, I never feel like I've learned it all. Never. You know what I mean? So, and you should always be looking to grow. So it's not about perfection. So give yourself grace. Nothing great happens overnight. Nothing great happens overnight. So give yourself that grace to be able to move. You didn't feel and grow that feeling about yourself overnight. So it's not going to be overnight that you're going to refrain from that and change that and reprogram your mind. That's going to be a process. So give yourself grace in that process to be able to become the person that you were destined to be. And tell yourself, I give myself permission to heal or to thrive at my own pace, not at someone else's. So don't do the comparison game, because that is going to be the key to you continuously telling yourself negative thoughts. It's not about the next person and how fast they grew or how fast they seem to have ascended. No, it's about your journey. about your own pace. So give yourself grace and give yourself permission to be able to move and grow and evolve at your own pace, right? So I wrote a book in 2018 called Mirror, Mirror on the Wall, Who Am I After All? And it's actually on Amazon right now. So here's the book, Mirror, Mirror on the Wall, Who Am I After All? And this book is a 10-chapter book. And the first chapter is The Bully Within, right? It's the very first chapter. And I thought this was a great place to start. And it's called The Bully Within, Your Own Negative Thoughts. So this chapter here really talks about how, a lot of times we start bullying ourselves. We don't need someone to tell us negative thoughts. We become the bully, because we're telling ourselves, and this chapter has ways that in which you can actually turn that around for yourself. And there's a quote in here where I start this chapter that says, I stopped checking for monsters under my bed when I realized they were inside of me. Isn't that something? Isn't that something? So you can get this book here, Asia Nasir, Mirror, Mirror on the Wall, Who Am I After All? You can get it, and I'm going to actually put it in the link here. I'm going to put it so that way you can purchase it right here on Amazon. But this is the book. Get this book if you're struggling. It's an interactive book that really helps you to put things to pen, and really get you to self-reflect. So if that's something that you struggle with, this book is really going to help you. So last but not least, I just want to share an upcoming event that I'm doing, because as mothers, if we don't heal, we pass on those things to our daughters. And sometimes they start, wearing the same insecurities and lack of positivity and self-worth that we're carrying on. And it's not intentional, but it happens because it's just the inner conversations we're having that externally, and our daughters tap in and they start doing that. So on May 10th, May 10th, Jessica Cares is hosting a mother-daughter event, and that's the flyer that you see up top there. She is me, and it's going to be a mother-daughter experience about empowerment, connection, courage, all of these beautiful things between mom and daughter. So I'm actually going to put that link in here now. That is on May 10th, which is Mother's Day weekend, and I am inviting you to come. We're going to have delicious food. We're going to have all kind of things, and I'm actually going to go to Amazon right now and get that link for that book, so that way you can actually get it. So hold on one second. I want to make sure that you get that book. But this upcoming event is going to be amazing. So if you're looking to do something with your daughter, reconnect, share new tools, so that way you can break that generation of, negative talk within the women in your family, come out to this event. It is going to be amazing. We got some exercises and activities that are just going to blow your mind. So bear with me one second. I am going to get that book for you, the link. I want to make sure before you go, you get that link. And you can do this with your daughter. Share this with your daughter, so that way she can grow, and y'all can maybe do a mommy-daughter book club. And y'all can read this together, do the exercises together, and grow together. And that would be a beautiful time spent with your daughter. So I'm sharing that here in the link. And I just put it in there. So yeah, now you have both. Now you have both links in here, so that way you can purchase the book and attend the mother-daughter event. Oh, I want you to be there. I want you, and this is for all, it's not just for teen girls and women. If you are an adult mom and you want to go with your mom, you are welcome to come to this event, especially if you've had some strain or maybe some recent estrangement from your mom. This would be a beautiful way, because it's all about connection, reconnection in some cases, and growing and being courageous enough to say we want to take that step to build and to be closer. So teen girls, we have a package for generational. So if it's grandmother, mother, and granddaughter, we want you to be in the room too. So that is what I wanted to share with you this week, that mirror talk. Tell yourself those things, have those conversations with yourself, challenge yourself, go into those places that only you can do. And remember, if nothing changes, nothing changes. So if you're not happy with the conversations that you're having with yourself, change those conversations and take that step now. So until our next Wake Up Wednesday, I hope that you have a blessed day. Continue to work on yourself and give yourself the grace that you deserve. See you soon.